It was business as usual that first Easter. The sun was rising, the week was just starting, families stirring, children still sleeping. Business were preparing to open for the busy day ahead, and the city was awakening, the typical quiet energy that is about to begin its day. When all of a sudden, if you look closely, you can still see her. In the distance, there's a young woman that is running down the dirt path with all her might. And she is saying something which I think we all need to hear once more. And so today, on this Easter Sunday, I invite you to cup your ears and listen closely to what she has to say. Her name is Mary Magdalene. She is from a place called Magdala. She is the first Easter preacher. Her sermon is extremely simple and straightforward. Her sermon is simply the words, "I have seen the Lord." That's her sermon. The first Easter sermon is delightfully short. And in case you're wondering, this one is not. Sorry about that. Her first Easter sermon is different. It had to be different. It is not belted from a high pulpit. It is not accompanied by the blast of trumpet or the resounding of timpani, not at all. Her sermon is actually whispered, probably sounding breathless from all that running. And yet, even winded, her voice still reverberates. You can still hear it through the centuries, speaking to anyone who has ears to hear. Anyone who needs to hear these words today. I have seen the Lord. That's her sermon. And she preaches it as she runs downhill. Notice she is running. And she's not the only one. Everyone is running in this text. Did you notice in the reading? Mary runs to tell the disciples run to see for themselves. Everyone is running. It's almost as if Easter is an emergency. It's an urgent event which demands action. And so they ran. And they did more than running. They did a lot of seeing as well. The act of seeing is at the center of the Gospel of John. Sight is at the center of the telling of the resurrection. The author goes way out of his way to tell us that everyone sees something different, that everyone in this text is affected by what they see. It's all about sight. It's all about the eyes. And so to get inspiration for this sermon, I, as I normally do, created a thematic playlist of music to listen to as I wrote. And this time, why not? I used an AI for that. And the prompt was very simple. It simply said, create a playlist of hit songs which use the word I or the theme of sight and vision in their title. For some reason, my AI agent knew that I was writing a sermon, and so it started recommending first a few hymns. His Eye is on the Sparrow, beautiful hymn. It's the Whitney Houston recording, by the way, which is, in my opinion, the best one out there. After that, His Eye is on the Sparrow, a gorgeous hymn. Be Thou My Vision, one of the favorite hymns of the church. And then, obviously, the great classic, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, was blind, but now I see. It was a good start. But then I thought, no, let's push it a little bit more. So I asked the AI to complete the list. Don't just give me religious music, give me more. And actually complete it with, why not, a playlist of hit songs from the 70s and the 80s. And it went to town. It really did. It suggested first, In Your Eyes, from the album So by Peter Gabriel, where I borrowed the title for today's sermon. Great album, by the way. The second one was My Eyes Adore You by Frankie Valli. The third one, Can't Take My Eyes Off of You, also by Frankie. The fourth one, Tus Ojos Mexicanos Lindos by Juan Gabriel. The fifth one, Hungry Eyes, Spanish Eyes, Lying Eyes, For Your Eyes Only, The Eye in the Sky, so on and so forth, losing so much of the focus of writing a sermon until it finally arrived to this song. Get this, The Eye of the Tiger. And that's when it lost me. One of the songs that really caught my attention was Looking Through the Eyes of Love by the Partridge Family. And if you don't know who the Partridge Family was, ask your parents, or better yet, ask your grandparents. I'm getting old here. Looking Through the Eyes of Love correctly suggests that there are different kinds of sight. There are different kinds of eyes, and with each, we see different things. It is very, very possible that two different people will witness the exact same event and see completely different things. Looking through the eyes of love, sings David Cassidy, asserting the fact that we have different kind of sight, all of us. For if that weren't true, how, I ask, is it possible that sometimes, even in the same family, we will see the world at this moment and one will see an absolute mess, and the other one may see signs of hope? Wasn't it Thoreau that once said, "It is not what you look at, it's what you see that matters"? He's right. Oh, so right. What we see through the eyes of love is different than what we see through the eyes of fear, or the eyes of anger, or the eyes of resentment, or the eyes of shock, or the eyes of the heart. It's all different. That first Easter, I argue that Mary Magdalene actually experienced sight in a very different way. She experienced sight through the eyes of memory, the eyes of grief, in the eyes of faith. The eyes of memory, the eyes of grief, and the eyes of faith. According to the Gospels, the first Easter began in darkness. Daybreak hadn't arrived yet. But it's not only a physical darkness, it's a theological darkness as well. It's a world without Christ. Good Friday just took place, and Jesus was dead. At his birth, in this very same gospel, we are told that in him was light, and the light shines for all people. And that is true, but today it's early in the morning. It's still dark. And I bet that Mary had a hard time on the way to the tomb in more ways than one. Could she see where she was going? I ask, in more ways than one. Did she have to light a torch? She has been to a place where many of us have been before, like many of us have done. She is going to the final resting place of one that she loved. And on her way over, I know her mind's eye was assaulted by a deluge of images that she remembered. She saw the first Easter through the eyes of memory. Think about it. The last time that she saw Jesus was on Good Friday, just a few hours ago. She saw him last as his tortured, lifeless body was taken down from the cross, bruised, beaten, and buried. Images burnt in her mind forever. I bet that she also saw him a few hours even before that. The arrest and the beatings and the crown of thorns, all of that, very difficult to see. And I'm sure also on her way to the tomb, her eyes of memory brought back better memories, happier memories. Maybe of Jesus surrounded by children, and Jesus saying, "Let the children come to me, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Images of Jesus teaching the multitudes by the lakeside, healing the sick, feeding the crowds, giving sight to the blind, welcoming the outcast and the unwanted, loving people in all walks of life into the kingdom of God, for that's what he did best. Her eyes of memory saw their first encounter, I am sure, when Jesus changed her life. We don't know much about Mary Magdalene in the Gospel of John. We know that she had been sick and in pain for a very long time. And without much explanation, the Gospels tell us that Jesus cast out 7 demons from her. I really don't know what that means. All I know is that her life was changed. And I bet she saw it. But that was then. Now she finds herself walking in darkness, trying not to stumble, remembering, going to see her friend's body one last time. But when she arrived, writes John, she saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb, and so she assumes for some reason that the body was stolen. Oh, it is no different than bringing flowers to a desecrated grave where the ground is dug up and the casket is missing and the headstone is lying on its side. Imagine the shock of it all. So she assumes that the body has been stolen, of course, I say, because she came looking for a dead body, because you only see what you believe. Oh, let me say that again. You only see what you believe. We'll get back to that. Her eyes of memory turned into eyes of confusion as she ran to tell the disciples. It's Easter morning, and you know how the story ends, of course. So fast forward just a few minutes and see the disciples running. They reach the empty tomb. One of them sees the linens that are lying there, and John tells us that he believed. I'm really not sure what that means at all. It is as if some people are able to catch the faith almost by intuition, not me. I have a harder time when it comes to faith. And apparently so does Mary. Because Mary cannot walk away as the disciples did and went home. She can't walk away. She lingers. Mary lingers until she is able to see. And her eyes of memory turned into eyes of grief. And I bet you know how that feels. We know how she feels because we've all been there. This world will very easily drive you to weeping, especially right now. We live in a world of war, in a world where threats and human casualties just continue to pile up. We live in a divided nation where even some Easter tables today will have empty seats and feel differently even on Easter. We live in a time of confusion. And we live craving for some clarity and justice and love and light and hope and maybe even for glimpses of joy. We can relate to Mary, I argue. She is now looking through the eyes of grief, and we know what that feels like. We are told that the disciples left once more, but she didn't. She stays and she lingers and she weeps. And weeping, as you know, is a lot more than crying. Weeping involves sobbing and heaving and passionate tears. Maybe her tears distorted her vision. They often do, don't they? But it is in the middle of all this weeping and crying, in the middle of all these tears, that behind her she hears the question, "Whom are you looking for?" I don't know about you, but I find it absolutely amazing that the first words that Jesus ever said in the Gospel of John in chapter 1 are, "Whom are you looking for?" And the first words that the resurrected Christ utters from inside of the tomb are the same ones. "Whom are you looking for?" It's as if he knows. As if he knows that deep in our souls we are all looking for something, and our internal sight lacks something yearning to be found. So Mary turns and looks at him and doesn't really see him. How that happened, I don't know. Maybe it's because she came looking for a body. Maybe it's true. You only see what you believe. Sister Jean Marie Gross was my math teacher during my last year of college. Sister Gross had a PhD in math and a PhD in physics and no sense of humor whatsoever at all. I am not exaggerating. Sister Jean Marie was a little scary. I didn't know that at the time, and so I enrolled in her class called Imaginary Numbers, and I thought the title sounded like it would be more fun and creative than it really was. It wasn't, not one little bit. I very well remember the very first class. She's standing in front of the students and she's trying to explain to us what imaginary numbers were and their uses. And trust me, we just weren't getting it. Not at all. Not even one little bit. It was awful. It was uncomfortable, and she was getting angry. And so in frustration, she turned to the blackboard and she grabbed her chalk and started writing down Schrodinger's equation. For those of you who are curious, Schrodinger's equation describes the variation of a quantum state over time. And if you're wondering, what does that mean? I have no idea. I memorized it for this sermon. I used to know what it meant 30 years ago, but not anymore. And so very, very frustrated, Sister Jean-Marie continued to write the equation, and she included the imaginary number and Planck's constants and Hamiltonian operators, so on and so forth. And when she was done, she turned very sure of herself, and she looked at us in the class, and she said, "Students, there, can you see it?" And I wanted to say, "I can see it, but that's not what you mean, is it?" Of course not. Didn't say that. We were scared of her. But I realized that day something that we all know intrinsically. Looking and seeing are completely different things. One is science, the other is art. One is with your eyes, the other is with your mind, with your heart, and dare I say today, even with your faith. Because I will say it again, you only see what you believe. For today, on this Easter Sunday, if you allow yourselves to see, you will see that Easter is a lot more than a Sunday to celebrate with family and friends. Easter is a lot more than chocolate eggs and Easter bunnies. Easter is so much more than parades and overpriced brunches. Easter is our annual reminder that our voice of grief can turn into a voice of hope. Easter is our annual reminder that after death there is life, that after darkness there is light. Easter is our invitation to believe what our eyes cannot yet see, to believe that the impossible actually becomes possible, the unimaginable becomes real, that the tomb is open and the light shines once more, grounding our lives in this mess of a world. Mary couldn't believe her eyes, but she still said, "I have seen the Lord." And in an instant, her grief was turned into unspeakable joy. I don't know about you, but I want that. I really do. Apparently, on Easter, it is possible. Mary saw the hope of this world, and she never looked back. A friend of mine, Dr. Richard Cromie, once said, "The only sunrise you ever see is the one you wake up for." He's right. The disciples left, but Mary stayed at the tomb. She lingered until she saw him. And since you cannot borrow anyone else's eyes of faith, my prayer this morning for you is that you, today on Easter, may follow Mary's example, and that you may linger in expectation of God and see for yourselves.